So recently I was sent this portable outdoor flat top griddle from a company called Nexgrill, and today I'm setting it all up and trying it out. This is the Nexgrill Daytona 2-burner propane 21-inch griddle with foldable cart, and it retails for about $200. And while it's pretty portable once fully assembled, this big old box full of parts weighs 90 pounds. So I'm leaving it right here on my truck tailgate while I start getting at it. As with most things, looking at a pile of parts and a million little nuts and bolts looks daunting at first, but a quick read through of the illustrated directions and it all goes together relatively straightforward. Attach one of the side shelves / handle and locking mechanism to the main burner assembly. Then a couple swivel brackets, get the pivoting legs put together, attach the wheel bracket and wheels, mount the whole leg assembly to the rest of it, get the sliding leg thingy connected to the locking mechanism. Now the whole thing will stand up and lock into place, making it easy to add the rest of the pieces. The other side shelf, the funnel part of the drip tray, the griddle bracket followed by the griddle itself, which the lid is already attached to, then the lid handle, slide the drip tray into its little compartment, and assembly is complete. All in all, this took me about half an hour, plus a little extra to fool around with my camera while recording this whole thing. Now I can really get a feel for how this thing collapses and expands for portability. It took a minute to get the feel for it, but it really is quite simple to drop it all down, roll it around, and pop it back up. On the underside of that locking mechanism, there's a metal tab that unlocks it. So I lift up on the main handle slightly to take some of the weight off the mechanism, then pull that tab back. Now the whole thing is unlocked and ready to lower down. To bring it back up, just do the same thing in reverse. Something I think is kind of cool about this griddle is that it can take the small 1-pound propane tanks. Since the idea is that this is a portable operation, this makes it pretty convenient to bust out the griddle, do a quick cook, and put it all away. There's even a little storage bracket for your can of propane to keep it in place while you're traveling. And of course, these little cans will not last an especially long time, but I went through about 1 can during the seasoning process and 1 subsequent cook. But you can always use a hose adapter to run this thing off a larger barbecue tank if needed. Now I'm ready to fire it up and start seasoning the griddle. It's hard to angle my camera such that you can see the flames under there, but there are 2 long burners that run the short length of the griddle, and they certainly got that flat top screaming hot. And I am going to season this griddle, but first I'm going to crank up the heat, close the lid, and let it go for a while to just burn off a bunch of the factory oils all over this thing. I don't know what those oils are, but they don't smell great, so I'm going to assume I don't want them all over my food. Once it's pretty much stopped smoking, I'll let the temperature come back down quite a bit before rubbing some vegetable oil all over the flat top. Then I'll bring the griddle temp back up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 375 to 400 degrees and let that just cook away for a little while with the lid closed. Seasoning is always an important step with a griddle like this. Whether it's cast iron, rolled steel, or carbon steel, the seasoning step is going to protect the griddle and make it much easier to cook on. The more you season it, the more of a, quote, non-stick surface it will be. Once the seasoning step is finished, it's ready to cook on. I took this griddle to a family event the same day and cooked up a mess of smash burgers. I didn't film any of that, but I ended up making myself a couple burgers at home about a week later, which explains why the flat top looks a lot more used than it did in the previous scene. Anyway, I'll heat up the flat top to about 400 degrees and start dropping my balls of ground beef on it. And of course, I'm doing smash burgers on this thing. If I were making non-smashed burgers, I'd just use my regular grill. But smash burgers are delicious, and this flat top works quite well for making them. And you know I gotta get some onions going on here. This isn't supposed to be a recipe video, but if you just happen to see how I make my favorite smash burgers while we're at it, well then I guess we'll just call it a bonus feature. Now let's talk about cleaning this thing. If I were going to be using it again in the next day or so, I'd just scrape it about as clean as possible and call it a day. But if I'm going to be storing it for a while, I want to give it a more proper cleaning. So with the griddle extremely hot, I'll pour a bit of water on it. That rapidly boiling water and steam is going to help loosen the bits of food and grease, making it pretty easy to really scrape the majority of everything right into the little grease hole. And don't worry about all the discoloration all over the griddle. That's just, well, seasoning. Like I said, the more grease and oil you cook, the more the seasoning will develop. Next, I'll give it a quick wipe with some paper towel and let the heat cook off any residual water. I don't want to leave any water just sitting on there. And once I've killed the heat and it's starting to cool down, I'll hit it with some cooking spray and give that a quick wipe with a paper towel. This protects my flat top from any ambient moisture and humidity and will help prevent corrosion. When the griddle is cooled down completely, this thing is ready to close up, stow, and roll away. And something I missed getting on video is this whole thing can stand upright. The lower side shelf hinges out slightly, acting as basically a kickstand. This makes it very convenient to store in between other stuff in my garage. So here are my final thoughts on the Nexgrill Daytona 2-burner portable propane griddle. If you're looking for a relatively inexpensive portable flat top griddle solution to cook for a not large group of people, this product is a pretty good option. As someone with way too many outdoor cooking appliances, its ability to store in a rather compact space is a big selling point, as is its ability to easily fit in the bed of my truck and take other places. It's decently built and seems pretty durable considering the price point. I like the features they included, such as the locking lid latch, the little propane tank storage bracket, and the placement of the grease hole in the flat top. The flat top seems to heat about as evenly as I'd expect, considering its size and the placement of the burners. No real complaints there. While it rolls around effortlessly, this thing is still about 90 pounds, which can make loading it into your vehicle by yourself potentially difficult depending on your strength and wingspan. In the past, I'd considered buying one of those portable flat tops that you set on a table, but they tend to have a slightly smaller cook surface, and you have to supply your own table. All things considered, I think this Nexgrill Daytona is a better option, unless you already just happen to have the perfect spot on a table in your outdoor kitchen for a small propane griddle to sit. So that's about it. If you want to check out this particular model of outdoor flat top griddle for yourself, I'll put a link to it in the video description below. And be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with all our latest stuff, including future cooking and product review videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'm John, and this is Great Lakes Country.